So you're talking about depth. Improving depth obviously will be, front and center of the things that the Niners need to do when they get into the NFL draft, which is about a month away. You and I have been bandying about who we both think could be the selection at 31. I've been on the Tyler Guyton offensive tackle, 6'7", 328-pound offensive tackle out of Oklahoma, who I've seen in a few mocks there. If the Niners do stick and stay at 31, could fall to them. I've seen him slip to the second round. I've also seen him go as high as, late teens. So depending on if he's there, I like Tyler Guyton an awful lot. He's a little bit more of a run blocking tackle than a pass blocking tackle. And I think any offensive line has to be with a little pass pro in it, since that was sort of the weak spot last year. And that brought me to another name, Larry. Amarius Mims is now who I like, and he's probably gone by 31. As a matter of fact, I saw a Yahoo mock draft that had the Niners trading up to 22 with Philadelphia to take Amarius Mims, who's a 6'7", 340-pound tackle who only started 8 games for the Bulldogs, but he is just all kinds of tooled up, and like in the first sentence of any bio about Amarius Mims, you'll see the phrase could have the highest ceiling of any tackle in this draft. Little bit raw, not exactly plug and play. He did start at right tackle, but again, only started 8 games for the Bulldogs. And he's young. He's 21 and won't be 22 until October. So he's a young 21, Larry. What do you think of Amarius Mims? He's a house.
He's the physical prototype is what he is. I mean, if you saw him, you'd be like, yep.
I watched
that's what you're looking for.
I watched 30 seconds YouTube video and I'm like, about Tyler Guyton, forget about it. I'm on Team Mims now.
Yeah, I mean, he's 6'8", 350. And he's got ridiculous long arms. He's got just a perfectly distributed weight deal. He looks lean at 350 pounds. This guy, played right tackle in 7 games this year. He made 6 starts. He hasn't played a lot.
He hasn't played a lot, but he's got an awful lot to work with, and he could be a successor to Trent. He could start at right, shift to left.
If everything goes right. I really like his, when you watch him initially, you're like, whoa, look at this guy, man. 6'8", 340, 350, pretty lean. He's very much the physical prototype. If you can coach him up. I'm always just a little concerned about guys who play that infrequently, because in the pros, you got to play, man. You got to play every week. You got to play every game. And so 8 games makes me a little nervous. Like, does he love football, or is he just born 6'8", 340, and somebody gave him shoulder pads and a helmet and said, get the hell out there?
I mean, I'll just say that there's an awful lot of talent at Georgia that might have prevented you from starting before they went to you. You got to climb that depth chart. And if you're starting at Georgia, you have NFL potential over the last couple of years, basically.
Yeah, but I mean, like Robert Beal is 6'4", 255 and just ripped up and runs sub 4.5. And what did he give the Niners this year? And I love Robert Beal, good dude. Talked to him about his killer. He wears the Jordans. His girl got him some Jordans for the playoffs, and he's a great kid and he's got a ton of potential. But how long can you say he's a great kid and has a ton of potential when the games are going on and he's not playing in them? So that's all I would say. I like Mims. I'm a little concerned. I like Guyton a lot against as a run blocker. I actually think though that if I like the tackles further down the road. Yeah, this is a great tackle draft, right? Alt, Fashanu, Fuaga, Latham, Mims, Guyton, Morgan, Patrick Paul. All those guys are going in the top 50, they think. But if you go further down the line, I think that's where you really get the there's a whole nother tier of tackles that I really love. Sumatea from BYU, Javon Foster from Missouri, Christian Jones from Texas, Ladarius Henderson from Michigan, Garrett Greenfield looked tremendous at South Dakota State.
Are any of those guys potential to be week one starters, though? I mean, would any of those guys
I think
come into camp and
be.
challenge Colton McKivitz instantly?
I don't know that anybody outside of, to be honest, I was talking about this with somebody yesterday. Who do you think is actually plug and play? I would say there's 4: Alt, Fashanu, Fuaga, and Latham. I think everybody else is going to need a little bit of time. Maybe Guyton could be ready to slide in because he did play right tackle last year. And obviously the need is at right tackle. I think the rest of these guys, though, are going to have to take some time. And don't be surprised if the Niners decide they want to bolster their offensive line. That, the center from West Virginia is just monster. I love offensive linemen that have a wrestling background. This kid has a wrestling background. He's from West Virginia. He's about 310 pounds. Zach Frazier. And, man, I wouldn't have a problem if they took Zach Frazier. I mean, he is a dominating center who could be a Pro Bowl caliber center for the next decade. So, they could go center. I'll say this. There was a guy yesterday in Columbus was the Buckeye Pro Day. And the Buckeye Pro Day is like, you got to check that out, right? Because, I mean, the Buckeyes have so much talent. Well, they have a defensive lineman who's kind of a 3 technique. And, he could be even a 5 technique because he's such a good mover. His name is Michael Hall Jr., not to be confused with Anthony Michael Hall. But Michael Hall Jr., he wore 51 for the Buckeyes. This guy was one of my favorite players to watch this year. Incredibly quick at 295 pounds. He ran yesterday 4.76. I mean, to put that in perspective, Aaron Donald ran 4.68. So Aaron Donald was amazing. But this guy at 300 pounds ran 4.76. And he had a 33-inch vertical, a 9.3 broad, 24 reps on the bench. And then when you watch him, you're like, wow, this guy can really rush the passer. He's one of the youngest players in the draft. He doesn't turn 21 until July. The scouts always love that. He was second in the nation among defensive tackles to Byron Murphy in pass rush win rate. He won 18% of the time this year. So I don't, he's marked in the high 3rd, late 2nd. Now with this workout, he's going to go higher than that. But if I were the Niners, if I could find a way to get an offensive lineman with that first pick, and then and maybe even trade back a couple of spots and see if you could maneuver to move up in the 2nd round a little bit, man, I'd love to have Michael Hall. Because if you could put Michael Hall on this line, with what they already have, man, that would be really scary. So the Buckeye, I like the Buckeye.
Let's go back to something we were talking about on Wednesday. It was Patrick Surtain and a possible trade with the Denver Broncos to add an A+ shutdown corner. And to do that, you're giving up your 1st round pick, are you not? So would you be willing to take any?
Maybe not this year. Maybe not this year. I think the price tag for Surtain is probably a 1, a 2, and a 3. But maybe you could go 2 and 3 this year, 1 or conditional 2 or 1 next year. Maybe you could structure the deal that way. If I were the Niners, that's the way I would want to do it. But yeah, I think Surtain is absolutely is a possibility for the 49ers. I mean, there's a right and wrong time to trade for a veteran, and the Niners right now are in that window, and Lynch knows it. He's smart. They're in that window to trade for the veteran. Why? Because you're going to get a 1st round pick, let's say. There's a hit rate and then there's a miss rate on these picks. If the Niners miss on their 1st or 2nd round pick in this next draft, that's going to dramatically hurt their chances of winning the Super Bowl. If you can somehow turn one of those high picks or a couple of those high picks into an all-world corner who's gonna come in and play great ball, you don't have to wonder.
Right, you're like Forrest Gump. At least we don't have to worry about that anymore.
Right. I mean, you get Surtain And Denver doesn't have a quarterback. Denver's in an obvious rebuild.
Right.
Um,
They don't need a number one corner. They don't.
I mean, everybody does, but like they're rebuilding. Rebuilding
Right.
teams need picks,
Right.
lots of them. And the Niners have, because of how they've gone through free agency, they don't have very many needs. I mean, if you said the Niners needs, there's like 4 or 5. They need a tight end, backup tight end, maybe a future starter. They could use one more D lineman. They could use a number one corner, and they could use some young offensive linemen. I mean, those are their needs, and they've got 10 picks. So this is the perfect opportunity to go to Denver and see if you can, get them interested in a deal. And if you can, and I think the Niners may, and the reason for it is I think they learned their lesson in the Super Bowl. The Niners lost the Super Bowl because of Trent McDuffie, because of L'Jarius Sneed, because those guys were really, really good.
They put the clamps on Debo and Ayuk. Clamps.
Yeah, and even Spagnuolo admitted, he's like, oh yeah, man, those guys enabled us to do so much defensively. So, I mean, the Niners have Demo and they have Ward, and they're both pretty solid. But if you could add a Surtain, now you're on a different level. And I think they're going to investigate it fully. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I know they're going to make calls, and I'm pretty sure they're going to try for it.